God, you're amazing. And thank you for the lesson we heard from Wayne here recently. We ask that you'd be with him as he gets ready to speak again, and that he would just have the same vibrance that he always does, and that people would hear the word. We also thank you for the 2 children that were baptized. That's always such a cool thing. It always touched my dad's heart, and it's just something that I think is a realization of someone making that, just the proclamation. The water doesn't do anything, but it's that heart and showing the world that you've changed because you've accepted Jesus Christ. I ask that you'd speak through me, help me to keep as much focus as someone like I can, and that we would enjoy talking about, now that we've heard from his friends, and that now we're going to hear from a few words from Job. And I ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. All right. So last week, actually, I'm going to start wrong right off the bat. All right. So this is a parody. So I wondered what would happen if by chance Job had an iPhone and liked to video blog. So let's see. Let's make this bigger. I saw it. Come on. No.
Okay, so
We'll just do it small.
not to be dramatic, but I think I just got soft launched into the apocalypse. Raiders pulled up, took all my oxen, servants gone. Then I swear I'm not hallucinating. Fire from the sky on my sheep. My sheep, bro. Day 3 of the world's worst skincare routine. Hot tip: scratching with broken pottery. 0 stars. Would not recommend. Good news. Boyle's still here. Bad news, so is my wife.
Are you seriously recording right now?
It's called trauma vlogging. It's coping. They've been sitting here for 7 days. No talking. No food. Just holy judgment energy.
May the day I was born be erased. Delete my birthday from the calendar. Why did I leave the womb just to suffer like this?
Lost everything. My offspring, home, and half my skin. But apparently, I just need to pray harder. Okay, so...
All right. So I did that to get us in the thought pattern, though, that as we came out of last week, we found that, and that was a parody. It was poking a little fun. And we'll actually talk about the wife next week, because I'm going to add that as, because she's only really mentioned a couple times. But she went through this with him, and Christy reminded me of that while we were discussing this lesson at one point. Oh, that's why it's not working. I got my Bible resting on it. Please come back. Okay. All right, so that was if he had an iPhone, what would that video log? And by the way, next week we'll see the whole thing. There's actually a 3.5 minute, but I just wanted that little section about Job speaking, because there's a little before it and a little after it. It actually is quite good. His interaction with God. The AI does have a few good things. You should have said, for the record, if you go searching for parody of Job, you can find a whole lot of bad things out there. There is more horrible thought, but that one was pretty good. I thought it was pretty funny. So just a kind of quick reminder of what we've covered. So we did a general overview. Satan gets to wreck Job's life. We all know that. Where it was us. That's still not Uzbekistan. And I don't know why that makes me laugh every time I write that. But this was ancient times, 2100 to 1800. How long he suffered, we aren't sure. If the reminder, though, is we know it was months. I put it probably closer to a year, somewhere in that time frame, for all that, for his guys to get there, for him to sit there, and just all the dialogue, God to show up and all that. So I'm thinking that he suffered months to a year, something of that nature. Then, of course, there's the beliefs of the time, that Job, while suffering severely, God is just, therefore Job screwed up somewhere. This was where his friends, who were real friends, but they had good theology. Without love, it's cruel. Certainty without humility is a condemnation. And you really can't always fix, and in most cases, you can't fix someone's pain. Now, I know the argument because I came up with it while I was thinking through this. So, you know what? If my kid skins a knee and they come in, yes, you can soothe them, and that there's a comfort there, and you can put salve on it, and time will heal the wound. They may have a scar. I've got a few on this body from the stupid things I did as a child. I'm sure none of you other guys have elbows that have long-term scars on them. But what we're talking about here is that emotional pain that has come from what he's been through. 4 people showed up and told him everything he's had, other than his wife, has been taken from him, his kids, his all of his beasts, his flocks, everything gone. And then, of course, we know then just shortly after that, he gets sick and he's got boils. And I can only imagine if you're willing to scrape yourself with pottery, you got to be feeling pretty bad about how those things are doing. All right, so today we're going to talk about Job's words matter. So, why do Job's words matter? As you'll see in the cartoon, just because you hear a thing doesn't mean you always understand a thing. It says, now that you're getting older, you should install a bar in your shower. So he does exactly that. The thing I want to point out about Job and what he talks about in this whole thing, it's not a lot of actions. All the action happens right up front, and then some action will happen when God shows up at the end next week. But really, everything from those first couple of chapters where God and Satan have the conversation to he loses everything, gets sick, and then this whole section where we heard his buddies talking to him last week, and now we're going to hear some response and him talking to God. It's all dialogue. There's no action. There's no things get better, things get worse. It's just in the moment with what he's dealing with the conversation, both to God and then in response to his friends, which I found kind of interesting the more I thought about it. And the thing I want you to wrestle with in your head is not why he suffered, but how he spoke. Because that's what we're going to look at is how do we respond? And I think Job's a great example. How do we respond when we're just going through the thick of something horrible? And I think if y'all remember, the very first lesson I got up here and was chatting a few weeks ago was, if I'm dealing with something horrible, this is one of the books I will go to. Because I've found that if I'll just read, I don't know, a couple of chapters, my life is infinitely better than it was a few minutes. It changes my mindset, realizing that it could always be worse. And you've heard that all your life, but Job is just a really good example of, it could always be worse. One of the books, and of all the books that I read, this is probably the one I recommend the most. It's meaty, but it's very easy read. It's Man of Heroic Endurance, Job. It's by Charles Swindoll. He has a whole series, by the way, of patriarchs, and they're all written like this. This has been a really good read. And I got a piece out of there I may get to. Okay, quick key question. I want some feedback. What does faithful speech response sound like when life makes no sense? When you're dealing with something or whatever, how do you express that? Who are you talking to? Is it just God? Is it your spouse? You have a confidant? How do you deal with that? What kind of speech are you probably having? Well, I'm going to be angry. So I don't know about the rest of y'all. Y'all are probably way better people than I am. But I get kind of mad when I don't think I deserve something that I'm going through. I'm much more like Job. I'm not Job, but I'm much more of a, I didn't do anything wrong here. I'm not. Go ahead, Scott.
After you get ticked, then it's why.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
the first word that comes.
Absolutely. I have a friend, and he was part of my Nate, and I'm not going to bring his name up, but we had a friend, and he lost a teenager to cancer. And let me tell you, when you're sitting with somebody on a Friday morning doing a Bible study, and you're discussing that is not, I have no words for that other than I love you. I'm sure not going to try to say I understand. And sometimes we say that not meaning to be mean, but I can't understand that. My kids are 29 and 35. I still don't want to ever go through that. And they're grown. So I think that sometimes that speech, what we say ourselves or what we say to others, just keep in mind, you may not ever, hopefully if God's not going to have you learn something out of it, you don't go through some of those things. Okay? My wife actually may buy this for me. This is a great sign I found. So, silence before speaking. In Job 2, I got it right here. Marked it. Thought I did. Yeah. Now, when Job's three friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Baldad the Shuhite and Zophar the Naamathite heard about all this adversity and all that happened. Each of them came to his home. They met together to go and sympathize. And I'm in the 2:11 through where to go. Then they looked from a distance. They could barely recognize him. They wept aloud. Each man tore his robes, threw dust in the air on his head, and then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and nights. No one spoke a word to him because they saw that his suffering was very intense. They sit for 7 days. Is this the wisest thing they could have done? What do y'all think? You show up, your buddies, just the silence, just the sitting with someone.
That's discipline. I couldn't do that.
I couldn't either. Christy and I, she's like, honey, they'd have had to tape your mouth shut not to be. And I like to think that I would have tried to been comforting. But how do you comfort someone who's gone through something that none of these guys had experienced? And yeah, we talked about that the Times said, oh, if he's going through this, he must have done something wrong. But they didn't launch into any of that when they got there. They saw the depth of what he was going through, and they came along as friends, and they just sat there. The closest example I have of this is my mom was in and out of hospitals all the time. We kind of kept a tally. If we didn't go once every 3 to 4 months, we were on borrowed time. And usually it would be she was sick and she'd get over it. But when she had to have her open heart surgery and when she had a hip replacement and her knee replacement and probably some other things I'm not thinking of, when we went to the hospital, especially the heart, because she wasn't in real great shape, we weren't sure she was going to come off the table. And we had friends that had been her friends and our friends, and we've known them. They've known Christy and I our entire lives. They showed up at the hospital. Yeah, they gave us hugs, said they're glad. And then they just were with us for hours on end through recovery. They might go get us a coffee or ask, can I get you some lunch? But the conversations were usually light. They were talking about fun things. They mentioned mom, but there was none of this, oh, it'll be better. It was just be with us. And then we had several that went and we prayed over mom before she went in. And that was all they were there to provide comfort. And I think sometimes guys like me who think we got to say words struggle with just being in the moment with someone when you don't really have the answer. Oh, we could say God's got a plan, and he does, but I don't know what it is. And Job's friends I have to take, and that he was sitting, and so for silence they said.
Hey, Scott.
Yes,
I
please.
just want to say that I had a friend one time tell me she'd had a death in her family, and she said, I hate it when people say, I'm sorry for your loss. And it was just like she needed to grieve, and she didn't want it. She
Sure.
just felt that was overwhelming. So from Job's point of reference, maybe that's what his friends really saw, is they didn't, they knew he didn't need to be acknowledged that he had all this because he knew he had it.
Right. Well, and you have to also think, the one thing that I didn't bring out last week, and I thought about it after and wanted to mention it here, is they were believers too, because they wouldn't have shown up and had all of the, you must have done something wrong, God's punishing, let's get through this together, confess your sin, let's get it out in the open, if they didn't have the same belief system. They did it wrong, we all agree, but these were his buddies. Let me tell you, I will show up. If you expect me to sit quiet for 7 days, it is an absolute 7 minutes I might could pull off. So, please.
Silence isn't compassion. I think that's what's missing.
It's fair. And that's why we're bringing it up, because 7 days is a long time, guys.
At some point, if you're Joe, you're like, what are you here for?
Yeah, well, and I thought in the video, I wondered if anyone would catch all I'm feeling is this holy, righteous pressure or whatever. I don't know. I wrestle with this, guys.
Can't be compassionate to a certain
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
maybe for 7 days it might be long. In times that we've suffered loss in our family, the greatest ministry we've had is somebody just
Sure.
there with us.
Yeah.
We know that they're friends or support, but that's it. Another point I was thinking about is maybe they were just there to, in case he needed something, serve him,
Sure.
serving him.
And all of these are valid. The text doesn't tell us. Now, I can make a whole lot of extrapolation like I did last week of what they said based on their mentality, but the coming and staying with him and just being there, whether it was there to, heap blame on him or not, they traveled there, they spent their time, money, they gave up their business, put their servants in charge, whatever, to come and sit with him for 7 days.
It doesn't say anything about anyone touching him.
It does not. Yeah. And again,
That's the culture.
if I show up, you're getting hugs, maybe a kiss. It's just my nature. You are going to have hands laid upon you. Well, that's true. You know what? That's a very true thing. So let me tell you, if you're lepric, is that the right word? If you have leprosy, yeah, I make words up. Ask Christy.
I wish more people were fluent in silence.
Yes. You're exactly. Yes, ma'am.
So my family has had chronic illness.
Mhm.
My mom has all sorts of autoimmune, all different things, and I myself have had health issues. And sometimes people, they want to help, but the continual, like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? They're trying to help,
Sure.
but it's exhausting. And my mom sometimes didn't want to go to church or want to go to certain places, so people would either give suggestions or they would ask, "How are you?"
Sure.
She didn't want to talk about it. So I think silence can be compassion.
And I think it's both. 7 days does seem like I cannot wrap my brain around it. Now, Christy be like, I can pull that off.
But prior to the 7 days silence, there's action that happens.
You bet.
The silence happens that is showing the compassion, and then at some point words fail.
Yeah. And they do. They show up and tear their robes and throw dust. I mean, they wail.
I wonder if this isn't a cultural thing, like silence for that length of time is a little more common than.
And it might be, yeah.
Because 7 is like a particular number, right?
Of course, yeah. We won't get into that because we'll never talk about anything else. All right, so let's get into some of the meat of this. So Job, his first words are a lament. He curses the day of his birth. He questions the value of life and suffering. Why didn't I perish at birth? The main point I want to get across here is honest lament is not unbelief. So what I want to do is I actually want to read a little bit of this. Let me get to 3:1, and I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to read through 12. It says, after this, Job began to speak and cursed the day he was born. May the day I was born perish, and the night that said, a boy is conceived, if only that day had turned to darkness. May God above not care about it, or light shine on it. May darkness and gloom reclaim it, and a cloud settle over it. May what darkens the day terrify it, if only darkness had taken that night away. May it not appear among the days of the year, or be listed on the calendar. Yes, may that night be barren. May no joyful shout be heard in it. Let those who curse days condemn it, those who are ready to rouse the Leviathan. May its morning star grow dark. May it wait for daylight, but have none. May it not see the breaking of dawn, for that night did not shut the door of my mother's womb and hide sorrow from my eyes. Why was I not stillborn? Why didn't I die as I came from her womb? Why did the knees receive me? Why were there breasts for me to nurse? I'm going to go a little bit more. Now I would certainly be lying down in peace, and I would be asleep. Then I would be at rest with the kings and counselors of the earth, who rebuilt ruined cities for themselves, or with princes with gold, filling their houses with silver. Or why was I not hidden like a miscarried child, like infants who never see daylight? I'm thinking he's pretty low. Fair? So what do you think? Honest lament isn't unbelief. Is anywhere in there, do you read anything about him not believing that God is God? So why, and by the way, I don't know about you, but that is such an awesome speech. How bad does it have to get that you wish your life, none of it. Remember, he's had an amazing life up until probably this time period. That this is so bad that none of the rest of that matters. How bad does it have to get for you?
I don't know. I lose perspective pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's fair. So how many of you have had, and
I'm gonna answer
please, I would love for you to answer that.
this. In verse 25 of that same speech, he says, "The thing I fear has overtaken me. What I have dreaded has happened to me." Now we can go backwards and say, okay,
Yeah, that's 24 through 26. Yeah, great
we
spot.
can go backwards and say that's what's happened in the past, but I would sit there and say he doesn't answer it yet until the future when he gets to 7. And he says, "My days pass more swiftly than a weaver's shuttle," which is hard to imagine. When you're feeling like this,
Yeah.
your days are not passing swiftly.
No. When you're really sick, I don't know about any of you,
Yeah.
those days drag.
Yeah, spend days in the hospital and it drags. And then he sits there and says, "They come to an end without hope. Remember that my life is but a breath. My eye will never again see anything good." That's what he is afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
He can't.
That he sees no future.
There's no.
Well, no future without pain, suffering.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's fair. What else? Anybody else about this lament that catches you?
I think sometimes it's hard to see maybe all the value you add to the world, like all the children you have or
Sure.
all the lives that they have, and then they are killed
They're
in
gone.
this way.
Yep.
I think sometimes it would be like maybe it was better if none of that happened, rather than happen for a little bit and then cause all this pain. I could see that being the thought process.
Keep trying to put a finger in a hand in a pocket.
In a
It does have.
pocket.
It does for some reason. I didn't know they made jerseys back then like this. But the thing I was trying to, one of the notes I put on mine was I was really looking to stress the distinction between cursing life versus cursing God. Nothing in here where he's saying, "God, you're the worst thing. You've done all this to me. You've allowed this to happen to me." He's just saying, "This is where I'm at, and I'm not sure what to do with it." And I think we all, there's a spot up here. You can join us. I think we all have gone through that. Nothing like this. Remember, when you're in a really deep spot, come back and read. Yes, ma'am.
I think another way of looking at this is like he, like Job, was just expecting that life would have no pains or sufferings.
That's his experience.
Yeah, like what tells him that it should be the order of the world? Like, what if the normality is pain and suffering in this world? Like, what has caused him to expect that?
Sure. No, that's fair. I think his whole life up to this point had been pretty gravy. Yeah.
Remember what he made offerings so these things wouldn't happen.
Oh, absolutely. And for his children. He was the priest of the family.
But he thought about those things.
Oh, had to go through his head. Sure.
I'm sure he didn't imagine the depth of it.
I tend to agree. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna go back to the 7-day thing. It's just something that stuck in my head. I was just pondering, and I looked it up. It's called sitting Shiva. They do this.
Really? Oh, see, I did not run across that.
Period of mourning, and they start by right after the funeral. They rip their outer garments, and then they sit with the family or the ones who have had the loss.
Okay.
And
See, Summer, you were way ahead. She just knew it. Very good. Thank you so much. We don't know. It doesn't say, so I don't have an answer for you. You make up whatever you feel, Bob.
Do you think his friends were afraid that if this happened to Job, a righteous and upright man, this would happen to us?
So I thought through that when I was talking about them, of not quite to that level, but I thought of them showing up going, "This is the best of us. What the heck has he possibly done to get this?" I went the other direction of they had to show up and go, "He's always been like the guy. He's Mr. Righteous. If he's going through this, good gravy, or, are we next?" Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe that fuels into some of their thing. You had to have done something wrong because I don't want this to happen.
Maybe. Yeah.
Do you think they might be questioning their faith, and so the alternative to him doing something wrong is we have an unjust God who just allows?
Well, remember, and that's the reason that was their whole premise is God is just, and they believe that. Therefore, he's suffering. Therefore, it has to be Job, because otherwise, if God is unjust, then everything that we've wrapped our entire lives and the belief in a holy God are out the window. Even though we, looking back, because for us it's a story, we got the whole thing into it. When you read it in one section, but when it was happening, I think that all that went through there. It had to. These are human beings. And their buddy is going through something that the only way, again, culturally remember, even up through Jesus' time, even up to today, we still, when something really bad happens, we, in our brain, go, what did they do? So. I agree.
Is there kind of an internal first number that I wrestle with personally, that
Yeah.
I deserve anything? And I think that at the end of the day, you're wrestling a little bit in this whole section of what humanity actually deserves is nothing. It is death.
Right.
It is a picture, a little bit of that. We don't deserve family. We don't deserve riches. We don't deserve all these things. And there's going to be this wrestling with that. And I do think he questions God in this. I don't think it's unbelief. But I do think to question the order that God put into his life is to question who God is.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that it's unbelief. I wrestle with that in the midst of such depth of sorrow and grief and removal of what I love.
And we're going to talk about how when he starts talking to God here in a minute of, God knows us. He knew, and we could go down a whole rabbit hole, and I thought about doing it, but I'm not going to, at least not a long way, of the whole thought of, okay, God knew this was coming. We're going to talk more about it when we hear God next week. But God knew all this. He laid it out, said, hey, have you considered Job? You want to go mess with my dude? He knew how, end to end, cover to cover, wrote it. The script was fully known, and yet it had to play out. I mean, did it play out? One reason so that we would have this conversation of he is God and we aren't. I appreciate Summer. I love you to death. But see, I go the other way. My ego gets in the way, and I'm like, I busted my butt. I do deserve to have a good life, and it absolutely does. There is no argument. But in this fleshly body, that's what I wrestle with. I work my buns off. I deserve something. When my Bible tells me you deserve nothing, your best is as filthy rags. And I mean, it has no value whatsoever. So for me, I wrestle that side of it more because my ego likes to get in the way.
I was saying I also wrestle with that, and I think that's actually when I look back at the deepest sufferings in my life, it is actually God's best gift to me to reveal what my true condition of my heart is. And so that might be a different way of looking at suffering. I get to a different level of faith with the Lord after the wrestling part. But it reveals things to me that I couldn't see otherwise.
Right.
It sucks,
but it is.
I learned early on in struggles
that
instead of saying, why me, why not me? Why?
Yeah, I'm horrible at that.
Goodbye.
Sure.
And then over 40 years ago, in the early 1970s, Habakkuk became my verse of choice.
Mm-hmm.
And where, despite all that can go wrong, I will still believe in God. And those two things set me up for what I had to go through in a 4-year period of being diagnosed with prostate cancer, having surgery, but that didn't work, so I had to do radiation, discovering I had Parkinson's disease, melanoma cancer, and I was a healthy guy all my life.
Right.
But never once did I say, why me? Because I've been taught to believe it's, why not me?
I love you, Skylar. I would have been like, why me? Why? Every morning, that would have been my first argument with God, but I appreciate you sharing that. All right, so can somebody go look at, grab chapter 8, verse 3 through 6 for me, and somebody else 11, 4 through 6, because we're going to talk about the friends assuming. So in mine, I'll take the first one while y'all get to that one. 4, 7, 8, it says, consider who has perished when he's innocent. Where have the honest been destroyed? In my experience, those who plow injustice and those who sow trouble will reap the same. They perish not at a single blast from God and come to an end by the breath of his nostrils. So Here we have Eliphaz basically going, hey, God takes care of the bad people. Therefore, what are you dealing with? Okay. Who has 8:3-6? This is about punishing the bad.
Does God pervert justice, or does the Almighty pervert what is right? If your son sinned against him, then he delivered them into the power of their transgression. If you would seek God and implore the compassion of the Almighty, if you are pure and upright, surely now he would rouse himself for you and restore your righteous estate.
Wow. He basically says, hey, your kid also is, I don't know if y'all caught that there, but yeah, he probably deserved what he got. So, and then, therefore, Job must be guilty. Who has 11:4-6?
You have said, my teaching is sound and I am pure in your sight. But if only God would speak and open his lips against you, he would show you the secrets of wisdom, for true wisdom has two sides. Know then that God has chosen to overlook some of your iniquity.
Wow. Okay. Now let's talk about Job talking back. So I need somebody to get 21:7-13, and I'm going to do 9:22. And I just went way more pages. 9:22. There we are. New Bible. I should have brought my other one that's all marked up. This one I'm still getting used to. It is all the same. Therefore I say, he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. When catastrophe brings sudden death, he mocks the despair of the innocent. The earth is handed over to the wicked. He blindfolds its judges. If it isn't he, then who is it? Man, he is wound up. So he's basically saying, hey, innocent people suffer. Job's sitting there in all of his distress going, hold on a second. Look at me. Let me talk to you for a second. All right, so who had 21:7-13?
Why do the wicked continue to live, growing old and becoming powerful? Their children are established while they are still alive, and their descendants before their eyes. Their homes are secure and free of fear. No rod of God strikes them. Their bulls breed without fail. Their cows calve and do not miscarry. They let their little ones run around like lambs, and their children skip about, singing to the tambourine and the lyre, rejoicing at the sound of the flute. They spend their days in prosperity, and they go down to Sheol in peace.
His response is pretty strong, and it goes, we all know, this is a back and forth through this whole thing, but pick those, because the three guys are like, you got to have done something wrong. You got to have done, the innocent are fine, the bad people get punished, and he's like, hold on a second, just like I put here, the Friends' theology sound familiar. So in today's world, can you think of somebody that you're like, man, that doesn't seem right that they get to live that way? And I'm gonna bring up the one that I've used a number of times. It drives me bananas when I have listened to little bits, and I usually have to turn it off because God's Spirit just gets all ticked off, and therefore I get ticked off. Listening to Joel Osteen and the way he pitches prosperity and that you'll be fine and it's all good, because this reminds me, as I went through this, kind of prosperity preaching that, hey, the good get what they need and all the blessings and the bad suffer. And I wrestled with that through this, that theologically it sounds so familiar across all of this time, all the way from back here up till now, that I look around and go, wait a minute, I'm with Job of that guy over there. I know, I mean, it is proven he's been caught out in X, Y, and Z, and he still, on an appearance level, is living great. Now, our Bible's pretty clear of, if you're going to have the riches here, that's it. Yeah, if you want all the credit and everything here, you are not going to enjoy the next part, because you're not probably a follower of Christ. And if you are, your life's going to be miserable. And I know men and that have had strong faith and they walked away from it and they still do okay. But they when you're around, it feels like there's just they're missing it. And you want to scream at them and you're missing it. Come back, repent. And they just float along through life, and they do fine. They've got houses, and I think of Big Alan and the life that one of my best friends, I named my son after him, and he's done great. but he has struggled in life. And I think part of it's because he quit attending church and following Christ the way my Bible is very clear about that we're supposed to do. So, thoughts? What do y'all think?
Scott, I was going to send this slide to some of my friends. I've been debating all week about the Minneapolis situation. Some of my good Indian Christians
Sure.
are on the other side. They are expressing a lot of outrage, saying that, oh, there's so much injustice.
Right.
It happens sometimes, but, everything's not black and white, this has to be, there are different views, not just the killing itself, but
Sure.
just other things, there's immigrants or, a lot of innocent immigrants are they said brown skinned or non-whites are being targeted, stuff like that. There's so much they get wrapped up into, but I'd say, hey, the outrage rate comes when you don't have God, don't believe in God's justice.
Right.
Let it play out, do things peacefully if you want to do something, So.
Yeah, and I think that's everywhere. And I thought y'all would get a kick out of the picture, though. Wanted to do there for 40 years, Moses' worst navigator. That was the Job challenging their oversimplification is this. And, of course, I had to use the Charlton Heston picture because it just fits. But if we look at the time, all that, it's like they could have, I love this. 150 hours of walking, they could have just walked it. There's more to the story there, just like there's more to what they're doing. Yes, ma'am.
The friend's assumption or their theology is pretty much like karma.
Very much, yes.
Yeah, it's what I grew up with. Like, if you do good, you're gonna get good, and if you do bad, you'll be punished. And like even my aunt actually believes that if she does enough good, she's going to be reincarnated into like a better life after death. So there's a lot of us doing that and controlling what would be the outcomes in our lives through our actions and our deeds. But like on the other hand, Job's belief was that nothing is in our power, like nothing is in our control, and even if we do good, there's no guarantee that we're going to see the outcome. So a lot of things are outside of our power.
Agreed.
Scott, I like to pick up on your
Please.
comment.
Yeah, please do.
Because again, I think that Job exposes that Satan has a misunderstanding of how this thing works as well.
100%.
Satan's basic idea is to sit there and say, you would look at it and say, okay, why does Job serve you? Well, because he has all this stuff. He lives this life that he just described.
Right.
Their days are spent in prosperity. They're going to go down in Sheol in peace, right? That would describe Job prior to his loss. Right? That's the course, that's the path he's on.
He was living his best life.
He was living his best life. Why would you, if you're saying, why would you ever do anything to anybody who's already in your camp to mess up anything about their life?
Right.
Because that causes, to Scott's point, after he's pissed off about whatever happened, his first answer is going to be why.
Right.
And it invites God into the conversation. It's interesting here, not a single time in any of this did anybody sit there and say, oh, you know why this happened? Because the enemy did it to me.
Yeah, there's no.
I feel the enemy attacks his own people too, because he just likes destroying.
He does, but we're a way better target.
Sure. Yeah, he's out to destroy you because destroying you is his goal. You're his enemy.
And I will do a.
Kingdom divided against itself doesn't fall.
Yeah, and I'm going to give a commentary because since it's y'all's fault that I'm going to take this rabbit trail. But
You don't have to push it very hard.
no, I'm pretty good at that. I deserve that. It's all good. At least you haven't done it. Well, my Bible says yet, but.
Dude, I passed on that.
The world we live in, our American world, Satan has realized, and he does it worldwide, so it's not just here, but where I know for a fact, the family value of what God put together in the Bible, a man and woman, they have kids and they raise them and they stay together through thick and thin. it has been completely destroyed, the amount of single moms and all that stuff, and how hard that makes it. It doesn't mean that God can't take care of them. So I am not saying that. What I'm saying is we have screwed up the plan he had for his people, and I'm talking about everybody, and they've bastardized it to the point that it's okay. In fact, we'll have kids, or we'll adopt kids, so that two women or two men or whatever you want to call themselves can live together and raise kids. I mean, we have destroyed the family unit to such a point. I think it's one of the most nefarious tools that he has used in my lifetime, that I've watched it change the way people think about who he is, or not think about him at all. Oh, off my soapbox. You're doing it wrong. So, in the interest of time, or I'm never going to get through the other 6 slides I still have, I definitely recommend you go back and take a look at these. But he talks about your words wound. They don't heal. And we've talked about, if you don't have compassion came up earlier. I can say a lot of things to you, but it's how I say them and what that context is. The Bible's very clear that if I am doing something that's wrong and Thomas sees it, he comes to me because he loves me and he's my brother and says, Scott, I'm seeing this in your life. I think we need to deal with it. And if I reject him, he goes and he gets the other Scott. He's like, well, he's got the same name. He'll listen to him more than me. And then they will come. I mean, it is very biblical that you go and you point it out. But the thing that they didn't know what it was. It wasn't like they observed, or the wife called up and Christy called and said, Thomas, I really need you to talk to Scott because he is drinking like a fish and he passed out and had a wreck. I mean, he needs help and he's not listening to me. I need you to go have a chat. These guys had no idea. They just knew he was suffering. They had no idea, but they showed up and talked like, okay, I still know the answer to what your problem is, even though they had no clue. They just went with what the society said, versus the example the Bible tells us how to address that, which is to go in love because you know what it is and you address the problem because of it. Not because of what's happening to them, which may or may not even be any consequence that you can see yet. It's more about that mentality of the words, whether they're wounding or healing. He talks about in 6 just the lack of loyalty and kindness. Now, I found this fascinating that he remember the 7 days, and that's why my little funny video makes more sense to me than it really probably should have, which is all I'm feeling is this righteous, pressure. And now that we know that it was 7 days, that was something in the time period, makes a lot of sense that they showed up. Now, they still traveled there. They did. I get it. They're still his friends. But it does put a little light on it. You defend God dishonestly. That one's a really interesting one. I actually want to talk about that one because I read that one several times. Hold on. 13, 7, and 8. So he says, would you testify unjustly on God's behalf or speak deceitfully for him? Would you show partiality to him or argue the case in his defense? And I'm going to go on. Would it go well if he examined you? Could you deceive him as you would deceive a man? And then surely he would rebuke you, and if you secretly showed, and it goes on. I found that to be a really interesting read, because every time I read it, I was like, Job is basically telling him, wait a minute, is what you're saying really true? Because it sounds like you're defending a God when you really don't know what's going on. I mean, my picture with the guy driving his truck into the lake, really, that's why I put that in there. He's getting the boat in the lake, but man, is he doing it the wrong way. And I think that's where his friends were. And we had talked about compassion with speeches. They replaced any compassion. And then, of course, miserable comforters you all are. That's really good. He literally says, you guys are some miserable friends. I mean, this is not comfort, guys. I mean, if that's the plan, you are missing the boat on this one. All right, where's my doing it wrong? Yeah, that's good. She would have normally said that, but yeah. Okay, which of these, though, when you hear this, how does it make you think of what Job's saying back to these guys, going, you guys, y'all are missing this boat. See? Anything jump out?
It's hard to say that to somebody who. Let's reverse the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You are kind of in a bad situation, and I come and chat with you. How hard is it for you to tell me that I'm doing a crap job?
That is perfectly fair.
Yeah, but he has to do it again and again because it just constantly ramps up. You know, where he has 5 verses in 16, and by the end of 21, he's like, "You offer me such futile comfort. Your answers are deceptive." He's worn out.
One of the, and it wasn't this, was one of the other. Yeah, it was one of my other things I read. It was really interesting. It said, really, these guys show up, and pretty quickly when they start talking, he's like, "You want to have a fist fight? In this state, I am still going to have a fist fight with you for what you're saying." Because remember, they're healthy.
Yeah.
And this dude is giving tit for tat against 3 dudes verbally, which it does take something out of it. Any of you gentlemen or ladies have gone and presented a big, like, I want, I've got a project and I need $25 million to do this across some hospitals. I have to build a business case, and then I usually have to go for about 2 hours and answer the dumbest questions because I know what I'm talking about, and I'm talking to some executive and they're trying to do their job too. I got good people, but those first ones, now I've been there 5 years. When I go in now, it's 30 minutes usually because there's a trust that's been built. But those first ones, and it's still sometimes some new exec that they've hired that doesn't know what they're doing yet, will come in and they just quiz me about the dumbest things. And it's like, yeah, that's how I'm going to, yes, that's exactly what I think I said. I don't quite do it that, but I'm getting pretty close. Anyway, all right, we get it. Hope when there aren't answers. And I don't know if y'all can read that, but it says, hope may not be warranted at this part. If you're laying in the desert looking up and that's what you see. So Job 19, he says, think about this. He's gone through all of this with his friends and everything else. But how hard is it to have hope when you don't have any answers for what's going on? Seriously, when you are dealing with stuff, how hard is it to have that hope? And this is a two-edged sword, so to speak, as an answer, because I can talk both sides of it. I think the Christ that lives in me allows me to have a hope that I don't understand. The Bible even talks about it. It's hope beyond my understanding because it doesn't make any dadgum sense when I'm going through something, and yet I still know that my Redeemer lives, and that at the end of this thing, I'm still going to be okay no matter what I deal with here. And I wonder if Job, now he didn't have Jesus, I get that, I'm not going down that path, so don't throw anything. Thomas, don't say anything about your Bible says. But he's a follower of God, and there has to be something. God's taking care of him. He is in communion in some way. He performs sacrifices for he and his family. You got to wonder if some of that wasn't going through his head of, and read what he does. My Redeemer lives. I mean, that we know that. And then he talks about being abandoned and accused. He's spoken before relief or explanation. So he's talking about, I am in horrible, horrible place, but I still believe what I believe. And that is probably the best testimony that I've ever had. And a lot of you have heard, anytime you've heard me speak, I've talked to the guys, if you've come on Saturday mornings once or twice when I've spoken, but I have a friend named Mark Farrell, and if he was sitting here, I'd say this exact same thing. He is an atheist. He thinks that we right now are in magic class. That's what he calls my Sundays. He will ask, how did magic class go? He believes I cling to a belief that is for the weak, and yet he says he thinks and this is where it's a little scary. He says he thinks I'm the first authentic Christian he's ever met because I'm the same dude that shows up and have now for 5 years, and he knows I've told him I love him, I've told him I pray for him, and he's like, okay, that's really great, whatever. But he respects and appreciates that I am what I say I am. He said because he grew up, he came up through foster, he had a horrible upbringing. He had foster parents who were Catholic and some that were Baptist. And he said they'd drag him to church and they'd slap him around when he was at home. and they were two different people, because we all know that happens. They want to get their checkbox for church, and then they're a different person outside of it. So he's got such a jaded view of what a Christian is that I am a paradox to the way he thinks. And that is not for me. That's because of Christ Jesus who lives in me. Because I've also said a million times that I would be dead or in prison if not for my belief. I just know it. I know my personality. Christy, she's had me for 36 years. She's like, yeah, he'd be dead or in prison. She might have murdered me. Or sent me there, whichever might be. So, back to Job and what we're looking at here. Hope and agony can coexist. So in 19, 20, and 22, I found this really fascinating. When you're in the midst of the horrible stuff, how is your hope? How do you deal with that when I get there? My skin and my flesh cling to my bones. I have escaped with only the skin of my teeth. Have mercy on me, my friends. Have mercy, for God's hand has struck me. Why do you persecute me as God does? Will you never get enough of my flesh? Whew. I wish that my words were written down, that they were recorded on a scroll or were inscribed in stone forever by an iron stylus and lead. By the way, they are done. Do what? They are. I found that fascinating. But I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the end, he will stand on the dust, even after my skin has been destroyed. Yet I will see God in my flesh. I will see him myself. My eyes will look at him, and not as a stranger. My heart longs within me. Now remember, earlier, he's like, I wish I hadn't been born, because that was what he's going to. But here, and we are well into this thing. We are back and forth with his buddies, and he's at a point that he still wants everybody to remember he absolutely longs to be in God's presence. That is such a hard thing, and I think that, how many of you have gone to a funeral for someone who's not a believer? Is that the saddest place on this planet? Because you know what their future is. And don't get me wrong, going to a funeral is never fun. But my mother's funeral, I had more people, and my dad's, and her dad's, come up because we knew where they were. We knew. And there was a smile, and he's in a better place. He doesn't feel pain anymore. Or just a hug and go, I loved you. Because there's a different feel, because we know what's next. And I think that's where Job is going, hey, if this thing kills me, in fact, I'm kind of longing for that. I already said it once, a different way, but I want to go there. Please.
He was like telling his friends that God is pursuing me. He touched me, and I got all of these stuff that are happening to me, and he has not been satisfied with my flesh. But so he knows that God has caused all of these things that happened to him, but in the end,
Or at least allowed it, yeah.
Yeah, he still runs to God. Like it's a bit confusing. But
sure it is.
Very scary. Like he's still running to the God that caused him.
We've got the whole Bible that we can look at. He was just looking at what his experiences are. But if you look at the whole Bible, the things that we know go on, if I'm going to accept that Job was real and that this is a real story, and I do 100%, then I also am accepting all the stuff in the New Testament and the rest of the Bible where it basically talks about he has a plan that I can't understand. He is above me. He is God and I am not. Therefore, whatever that is that I'm going through, there's a purpose for it, even if I think it's insane. And that's where I think that hope comes from.
Well, I think it's
Please.
Faith. It's faith of knowing. To me, hope is I'm hoping it's going to happen. Faith is knowing that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Man, I should have cut about 3 of these out of here. All right, so Job talks to God. So can somebody go grab 13, 24, and 25? We talked about it a little bit, but he kind of accuses God of targeting him there. And I'm just going to talk about Job questions God's justice. This is where, I'm going to go back. I do want to read just that first one, 7:17. I did mark some of these. All right, so it says, What is a mere human that you think so highly of him and pay so much attention to him? You inspect him every morning and put him to the test every moment. Will you ever look away from me or leave me alone so I have enough time to swallow? If I have sinned, what have I done to you, watcher of humanity? Why have you made me your target so that I have become a burden to you? Why not forgive my sin and pardon my iniquity? And he goes on and on. But that piece of, okay, God, I get it. Show me what I've done. I think at this point he's like, maybe I did. And I don't remember what it was. Go ahead and point that out. That, or can you just look over there so I can have a second? Very interesting. All right. Who grabbed 13, 24, 25? Please.
Why do you hide your face and count me as your enemy? Will you frighten and driven me and pursue dry chaff?
How many of us have been in a place where when we're talking to God, we're like, where are you? And you feel like your prayer doesn't get past this ceiling tile. And you're like, God, where are you? Even if things are going kind of smooth, you just have that, that empty, that he's not listening thing. Is it just me? Nate? Yeah. How do we deal with that? What do you think?
I usually go talk to my parents because they have
Sure.
the most faith that I've ever known. And then they remind me of all the times that he's been faithful in their lives. But the people that he's talking to, making it worse.
Sure. So you hit on one, and I'm fortunate. I'm married to a fantastic woman who is grounded in her Bible. When I am wrestling with anything, and she'll go, "Oh, well, it's usually over here," or "What about that?" and she'll help me think through that. But looking backwards, so in my career and in our lives, we talk about we didn't have two dimes to rub together when we first got married. About once every 2 or 3 weeks, we would order a Rocco's pizza because they put a coupon out and we could get a medium, I think, their deep dish. We talked about it. They don't exist anymore. And that was it. She'd make a salad or some green beans or something to go with it, whatever. Probably not green beans. But something, yeah, hush. But we would order pepperoni or some kind of pizza. And I would go get it because we couldn't afford the $2 delivery charge. I would go pick it up. It was like $7. And that was like a treat. That was a date night at the house because every Friday was date night, but it was usually at the house and we'd stick Alan in front of Fantasia or something that would put him to sleep for a little bit or just mesmerize him. And then we come all the way to here where we live. We're so blessed financially. God is just amazing. And he's been good to us. And in fact, I kind of picture myself of Job of, I live really well. Yeah, there's a lot of rich people. I don't care. I live great because he's allowed me to. But when I run into those, I don't know what's going on or whatever, I look backwards. And you've heard the analogy or the little story of you can see God's fingerprints and the one where he carries you on the sand, all that crap. Sorry, all that stuff. But it's true. When I look back at everything that she and I have gone through together, and I've been laid off from jobs 4 times, 5 times. I don't track it too much anymore. I've gone through lots of job changes and everything else. And yet every time I look back, there's a spot where it did something for us. And I think Job, while he's in the midst of all this, there's got to be some of this, hey, I'm still looking forward to what you got planned because I know it used to be better than this. Okay.
God, it's also sometimes not about us. Like, sometimes I think God calls us to these moments because he uses that for something else. And so, I can think of distinctive times in suffering in our lives where 2 weeks, and even in the midst of all this other suffering, he puts an unbeliever or somebody in my path
Sure.
or Andy's path that are suffering with exactly the same thing. And I'm able to have the testimony you were referring to about to your atheist friend.
Yeah.
That I would not otherwise have. Like, it's really easy for an unbeliever to be like, these friends, like, why wouldn't you believe your life is this or that?
Right.
But it's really in the suffering where, again, I think evidence of our faith is put into action.
And I think he does put people in our past. No, I don't think. I know he puts people in our past that match our experiences because my father, and those of you who have heard me talk about him, he was the most sincere Christian I've ever met. He was the same guy at church and at home and everywhere else. ninth grade education, drove a truck for a living, and men sought him out to have him pray for him when we would be on docks and unloading trucks. I mean, that's where I grew up in. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at this. Okay, integrity in the legal case. Oh, and one note I had on that last one that I didn't get to was, Job doesn't stop addressing God. He keeps talking to him. It's okay to argue with God. He knows what's in your head. So if you express it, it isn't like he's going to go, oh, I can't believe Scott just said that. What he's going to do is go, that's my boy, and he is so screwed up right now, and I'm going to love him and keep the dialogue going. All right, so I don't have time to read these. You'll have and I got to send you a copy of all these slides. I haven't done that. Don't you put them somewhere? Okay. He claims, I deserve that. That's fair. Job claims integrity, not perfection, if you want to see that. But he basically says, hey, I have got my integrity. But he doesn't say he's perfect because he says, hey, I screwed this up and all this stuff. He lists sins he didn't commit. He invites God to respond. This is where he's like, hey, I'm going to make my legal case. And this is what's going to lead into next week. He says, let the Almighty answer me. I don't recommend that. I'm just going to, because wait till you, yeah. And then, so here, all I'm trying to say is his integrity means that means faithfulness, not sinlessness. This is a confidence, not an arrogance. As I look back, I have a confidence God's going to take care of me, even if I go through HE double hockey sticks for the rest of my life. I know there's some kind of, I have to know because my Bible says he's got it planned out. Okay. Final words and his posture. So, you ever walked into a room and the guy is, and I'll play like I'm Wayne, I'm a sword, and because he's always doing his little voices, which I'm not going to do. But man, you can just tell that's a haughty person. Or you interact with them, especially from a business standpoint. I love when the vendor doesn't know what I do, because I'll usually be in jeans and boots, and they'll just start over this and that. And one of my guys will come up and they'll be deferring, which I don't care. But it's always fun when like, well, Scott really runs operations for all the hospitals, and oh no, he has the clinics too. Oh no, he's over all the IT stuff. And it's amazing to watch, sadly, that because of once they realize who I am, they're going to treat me different. And I think here, Job's final words, and as he's getting ready for God to come back and have a little chit chat, which we'll see next, he is still showing a humble posture. Humility is not a strong point for me, but it is a taught and understood lesson that I have taken. There's a reason a lot of the times I do stuff behind the scenes because, one, I'm good at it and I like doing it and I like leading people, but I am constantly reminded of I'm supposed to be a servant leader, and just like the pastor talked about, I really am not supposed to be in charge. But if I'm going to be, I better be looking for the right example. And I think that's where Job's words, these last words that he talks about, is it's faith refusing to be silent with God. He stays, he speaks honestly. He doesn't abandon his faith, even though people are basically telling him to. He doesn't want a shallow explanation of his suffering. He keeps talking to his friends and to God. Last but not least, nope, we're not going to answer those questions because we're going to end on time. Next week, God steps up to the microphone. And if you haven't ever listened to that album, it's great. All right. Any last? I did get us out of here on time. Anything last? Okay. Thomas, would you pray for us and pray us out of here?
Father, thank you for Scott and his heart. He shares how he wrestles because we all do. The suffering that we go through is sometimes hard for us to wrap our heads around. And we, in our flesh and in our culture, respond in inappropriate ways. And we ask you to forgive us for that. And then we ask you to continue to teach us through this book and this class. And we're thankful for what we've seen and read in your word today. Just bless us, give us warmth this week in your son's name. Amen.
Amen.